The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Obama placed the embargo on press over secret cybersecurity executive order. BuzzFeed reported today that Obama secretly signed a long-awaited executive order on cybersecurity, then issued an embargo to all news organizations not to cover the developments. The report states, shortly before 4:20 p.m. Tuesday, the White House emailed reporters that President Obama had signed a highly anticipated executive order aimed at protecting cybersecurity. The order setting up new programs aimed at stopping online espionage and terrorism was already the law of the land, signed by the president. But it was also secret.
Really? So, I guess we're going to have to lose all of our freedoms now? Folks, are you asleep yet? Or are you awake? It's time to wake up. That's for damn sure.
The document was embargoed until delivery of the president's in the State of the Union address, despite the fact it had already been signed. The report states that there was a background briefing on the move, involving members of the press. Explaining that the embargo was not legally binding, BuzzFeed says it chose to break it and report the story, because they thought it appropriate to report on the unusual delay.
You know, didn't they just vote on that twice in Congress and it got shut down both times because they didn't want that? And we, the people, didn't want that? The same thing with SOPA and now SIPA. Ain't this all the same thing? Folks, wake up.
BuzzFeed also revealed that in an email sent out regarding the development, White House spokesman Tommy Vietor attempted to explain the secrecy behind the executive order. "We wanted to release the EO early on an embargoed basis, because the subject matter is complicated, and we knew you guys would have questions. It seemed more helpful for the press corps than sending it concurrent with the speech," the email said. Vietor added, "This isn't unprecedented. Take for example sanctions executive orders. They are signed one day, go into effect at midnight but are not released until the next day. The secrecy over the executive order sets a precedent, given that it is usually only employed where classified information is concerned." The White House synopsis on the executive order reads, "According to a White House synopsis, the executive order includes new information sharing programs to provide both classified and unclassified threat and attack information to the United States companies. The executive order requires federal agencies to produce unclassified reports of threats to the United States companies, and requires the reports to be shared in a timely manner. The order also expands the Enhanced Cybersecurity Services Program, enabling near real-time sharing of cyber threat information to assist participating critical infrastructure companies in their cyber protection efforts. The development of a cybersecurity framework. The executive order directs the National Institute of Standards and Technology (NIST) to lead the development of a framework of cybersecurity practices to reduce cyber risks to critical infrastructure. NIST will work collaboratively with industry to develop the framework, relying on existing international standards, practices, and procedures that have proven to be effective."
Well, I don't know about y'all folks, but that sounds like a bunch of rigmarole. Just another way to monitor everything that we do, folks. That we do. Not what everybody else does, and not about foreign interest. It's all about what we talk about and what we put on the internet. Remember that, okay?
To enable technical innovation, the cybersecurity framework will provide guidance that is technology neutral and that enables critical infrastructure sectors to benefit from a competitive market for products and service, includes strong privacy and civil liberties protections based on the Fair Information Practice principles. Agencies are required to incorporate privacy and civil liberties safeguards in their activities under this order. Those safeguards will be based upon the Fair Information Practice Principles FIPS and other applicable privacy and civil liberties policies, principles, and frameworks. Agencies will conduct regular assessments of privacy and civil liberties impacts of their activities, and such assessments will be made public. Establishes a voluntary program to promote the adoption of the cybersecurity framework.
To adopt the cybersecurity net. Oh man. Whew, Lord. That's a lot of jigamajoe right there, boy. I'm telling you what. Let's calm the people into thinking that everything's okay. And we can stick a hickory dickory up their ass, and they won't never know until the Spurs kick them. You get my drift?
The Department of Homeland Security will work with sector-specific agencies like the Department of Energy and the sector coordinating councils that represent industry to develop a program to assist companies with implementing the cybersecurity framework and to identify incentives for adoption. Calls for a review of existing cybersecurity regulation. Regulatory agencies will use the cybersecurity framework to assess their cybersecurity regulations, determine if existing requirements are sufficient, and whether any existing regulations can be eliminated as no longer effective. If the existing regulations are ineffective or insufficient, agencies will propose new, cost-effective regulations based upon the cybersecurity framework and in consultation with their regulated companies. Independent regulatory agencies are encouraged to leverage the cybersecurity framework to consider prioritized actions to mitigate cyber risks for critical infrastructure consistent with their authorities.
Okay, so if an executive order so they can change it at any time they want to do whatever they want? I mean, you did hear that, right? I mean, so it's an executive order to change the law as they go along, and then change it to another law. Just change the law, the wording of the law, anytime they want to, so the people don't know what the law is. That sounds like entrapment. Doesn't it to you? Yes, I do believe that's what they call that, entrapment. Well, there you go, folks. One more little thing. Now I'm going to play you something else here that you might be interested in, just to show you that everything is not what it seems.
Now that Senate Republicans have killed Obama's cybersecurity legislation, there is a good chance the president will sign an unconstitutional executive order implementing provisions of the failed legislation. Cybersecurity is dead for this Congress, said Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid following the move. Republicans blocked the legislation in August and again on Wednesday, saying it would lead to further business regulation. The final vote was 51 to 47, short of the 60 votes required under Senate rules, to bring the bill up for passage. Since Joe Lieberman, Icahn, and Susan Collins, our Maine, introduced the legislation in February. The bill proposed voluntary cybersecurity standards set by the Department of Homeland Security for companies that operate infrastructure considered vital to the United States national security. It also set standards for companies and the government to share information on cyber threats. The bill's defeat paves the way for an executive order. An executive order is one of a number of measures we are considering as we look to implement the President's direction to do absolutely everything we can to better protect our nation against today's cyber threats, White House spokesperson Caitlin Hayden said in September. We've spent months going over the various faults in the bill and of the faults in the other proposed cybersecurity bills, the Electronic Frontier Foundation said following the vote against cloture in the Senate. We were particularly concerned because the Cybersecurity Act included overly vague definitions for key terms like cybersecurity threat indicator, and even countermeasures. The failed legislation would have allowed companies to spy on users and share their personal information with the government. As a result of this public-private partnership defined as corporatism or fascism, surveillance would be outsourced to private companies not beholden to the Fourth Amendment. companies would have the authority without warrants or judicial process to modify, block, or disrupt internet traffic they and the government believe pose vaguely defined cybersecurity threats. In his farewell speech to Congress last night, retiring Rep. Ron Paul stressed the need for a free and open internet without government intervention. The internet will provide the alternative to the government media complex that controls the news and most political propaganda. This is why it's essential that the internet remains free of government regulation, Paul said. If Obama signs an executive order and imposes so-called cybersecurity regulation, the ability of the government to impede the free flow of information will undoubtedly be enhanced. As InfoWarsCom has noted on numerous occasions, critical infrastructure in the United States is not part of the public internet and not threatened by hackers. It has been used repeatedly over the last few years to condition the public to believe that the government needs to regulate the internet. Government invariably exploits what appears to be well-meaning legislation to attack political enemies. The Department of Homeland Security has excelled at attacking the Occupy movement, and considers the Patriot movement an enemy of the national security state. If enacted by imperial fiat, the ability of the federal government to attack that enemy and disrupt and censor the free flow of information on the internet under the guise of protecting public infrastructure will be greatly enhanced.
If there's a blue pill and a red pill, and the blue pill is half the price of the red pill and works just as well, why not pay half price?